Northeast India in many ways reflects the very meaning of what our founding fathers had defined as the meaning of India. Religious, cultural and linguistic diversity. These 8 states are home to an unmatched variety, a treasure of human and natural resources, strategically located that they serve India's vital interests. India cannot be what it is without the Northeast. In this episode, we look at why the Northeast is important to India. The rich diversity of tribes, languages, ethnicity makes the Northeast of India fascinatingly vibrant and different. The 8 states are unique, yet complex, but collectively they represent the idea of India that is still being achieved.
Perhaps we have not accepted this diversity true to the spirit. Had we accepted this diversity true to the spirit, perhaps our dream of a unity of India out of this diversity should have been long gone. The fact that we still do not recognize this diversity, are we willing to accept the racial differences this country has? Are we still able to accept equally the plurality of the caste and the hierarchy and the violation of different forms that have taken place? Are we really able to accept? So I think there is need a strength to accept the diversity.
India is also a big country. We have a lot of we have religion, we have festival, we have faith, we are in environment. Somebody is interested in religious places, somebody is interested in environmental things, somebody is interested in wildlife. Why not project these things from the region to rest of the country? Like red panda, which is famous for China is famous for panda, but we have a red panda which is smaller in size in Sikkim. The wildlife lover would like to this could be the starting point. What I mean to say is, when you talk about Sikkim, you just don't show the river or mountain. Sikkim also is important because if you talk about the highest Indian peak, which is Kanchenjunga, is in Sikkim. So this could be the starting point instead of just showing the dances and all that, which do not convey anything.
The racial differentiation. Yeah. I mean, we are different race. I mean, that they look different, and there is nothing wrong about that. The beauty of India lies that it has different multiplicity of the racial stock living together and trying to live along one another, and that's the beauty of India ought to be, and it has been so far in spite of unhappy events. I am one who will believe that in multiplicity and plurality, but the point is this differencing. Accepting difference is one thing, but othering is another point. This othering of the racial difference is something worth noting.
Every Northeasterner feels that he is part of one unit, but at the same time, because see, there are more than 220 or 225 tribes, sub-tribes, dialects, sub-dialects, and the language is again a barrier. Unity in a sense, like, people do feel that they are in one same block together.
During the week, 18 of the 25 Lok Sabha seats in the Northeast went to the polls in the general election for the 16th Lok Sabha, while Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim also had simultaneous polls for the assemblies. There was massive voter turnout, well above the national average. As the Northeast went to the polls, China's state-run news agency Xinhua said in a news analysis article that India's northeastern states were the country's most neglected region. It said, isolation and years of neglect by Government of India have fueled underdevelopment, occasional tribal unrest and insurgency in the region, thus hampering overall growth of the northeastern states. So quite plainly, the Northeast is important to India strategically. China has built up its infrastructure along the line of actual control, And the border question being discussed at the level of special representatives is a question that directly involves the Northeast.
India's defeat in the hands of China, I think this memory has not been lost, and it's not very happy thing to remember even. The point is that Indian army retreated up to Calcutta. Entire of the Northeast was left to the Chinese. Chinese came, occupied the entire Northeast. If they wanted, they could have stayed back, but they went back again. I mean, Chinese also went back. They didn't occupy the region. So I think China being a major threat to India is very much there in the psyche of the political leadership and even general public.
See, Northeast is very important for India is because of it being the frontier states. See, we have China border with all along Arunachal, Sikkim. Then we have Myanmar, which has borders with 4 states like Manipur, Nagaland, Assam, Arunachal, part of Arunachal and Mizoram. 5 of them in fact. Then we have Bangladesh, which borders with Mizoram and Tripura and Meghalaya also.
Northeast is very, very critical to India, both in the context of geography and in the context of people and culture and heritage, right? And of course, when it comes to geography, it really it also means very, very important on issues of national security.
While the Chinese claim Arunachal Pradesh is South Tibet, high voter turnout in Arunachal suggests it is and shall remain an integral part of India. But the Chinese developmental model, which has benefited the tribal communities ethnically linked to the Northeast in Kunming, has raised an important question.
See, I think one point, in spite of all the military harping on, all the external affairs expert harping on China as a major potential military threat to India, I think war is a faraway cry. I think both India and China are in the midst of new capitalist threat, drive. So none of them would like to fight and cost enormous loss of resources and money in lieu of development prospects. That's very clear. But then people play and harp on this warmongering, that India might be invaded, China might be invaded. So I think we need to really see the reality. Is the reality lies in trade transaction, development, and certain prosperity of the people, both sides. Why China is developing so well in the south of China, who are not Han Chinese, by the way, Kunming. These are all tribes. These are about Thais and several others communities, ethnic communities. It is developing so well. Why it does not happen in India is worth asking the question.
So it is all the more important for India to build connectivity and develop infrastructure in Arunachal Pradesh. The Trans-Arunachal Highway is being built keeping this in mind. The highway extends from Tawang in western Arunachal to Kanubari in the east, covering 1,559 kilometers. It is envisaged to touch 11 of the existing district headquarters. The remaining 5 districts and the state capital will be connected to the highway by link roads covering another 848 kilometers.
You will be surprised the Northeast is sitting on the opportunities because of Government of India's locust policies. By the end of this year, the BIMSTEC countries are going to finalize the free trade agreement among themselves. This was decided on March 4th in Naypyidaw in Myanmar, where Prime Minister Manmohan Singh took it up, and they decided to conclude this year only, finish it so that it can just take off. So the free border trade, our states will definitely benefit.
While many in the region want to enjoy the benefits of globalization, which is the larger intention of the Look East policy, there are concerns about protecting identity, culture and biodiversity.
There is a need for the region to develop. There is no doubt about that. I don't think there will be a second thought about keeping the region underdeveloped. I don't think any sensible person would talk about it. But the question that needs to be asked is, who is development and whose development? And this is a philosophical question, but I think it is pertinent to raise this question. Which form of development are we talking about, and whose development are we talking about when we talk of the region to be developed?
While this is a philosophical question, it is one that describes the dilemma of the Northeast pretty well. It also puts into context the central questions for any economy: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. In the Northeast, the resource that is both plentiful and a concern is water. Water is a huge resource in the region, but it is also necessary to understand the sensitivity of its use.
I think there needs to be a balance. There's no doubt that it's a rich resource for the people there. But one needs to also have an assessment of how much you need to build. Whenever society invests in a certain development, there is a risk-taking behavior to it. So if I build a dam in a seismic area, there is a risk the society takes. Does it get adequate revenue, resource built out of it, generated out of it for themselves? In large cases, specifically states like Arunachal, it's not happened. What we've seen is literally crony capitalism at its worst anywhere. We've got hundreds of dams being contracted out without any carrying capacity, with no clue about how much money or revenue generated or power generated from those projects will go to the people there. So if I'm going to build 100 dams worth 50,000 megawatts and take 49,000 megawatts out of that to Delhi, it absolutely does not make sense, because there's no trade-off which is worthwhile for the people there. So if there was a cumulative assessment saying this is the best we can do, there is a trade-off. Every time we build a dam, we will submerge some biodiversity. But if we can bring a balance and this is the maximum we'll do, it still makes sense. But I don't think the government's there or the center is anywhere close to reaching that kind of worldview.